regular Wednesday Live. I'm glad everyone can join us, and I'm glad that these ladies can join me. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Melissa. I am a 7th grade English teacher and journalism teacher.
Hi, I'm Jen. I teach kindergarten.
So tonight we're talking about a subject that I think has become much more prominent in the past years, cyberbullying. You hear about it all the time. You see it happening. And, a lot of schools are creating and using these courses to teach kids about cyberbullying, but it's still happening and it's going to continue happening. And so I think one of the things we need to talk about is what happens as a teacher, when you have students that are being cyberbullied. Because I don't know about you, but I taught middle school and pretty much every student I had a cell phone in their hand. They just did. And, with that access to technology all the time, it's not uncommon for them to be cyberbullied. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I know for littles, Jen, like your little ones, they probably don't have an iPhone in their hand, or at least I hope they don't. I know there's a few little kids that have them, but that's a little young, I think. But, when you get into that middle school age and the high school age, that's where those kids really have those phones, and they're on them, some of them all the time. Mm-hmm. So with that many apps and that much access, it's happening. What are some signs do you think you might see in a child that's being cyberbullied?
For me anyways, it's some of my kids outright come and tell me. Some of them you can just tell that something is off, and it may take them a while to admit it, but they're classic signs that we are trained to look for as teachers. They withdraw, they act out. They really just, the classic signs of some trauma happening are things that you really need to look for.
It's really great that your students are comfortable enough with you to just come right out and tell you. That means that you're doing a great job of building a community and making students feel safe with you, which is what we're all striving to do, especially at the beginning of the year. That's a big theme, even at my level, going over, what are the expectations for class and how do we build a safe community. But that's great that at the middle school level, you've already set groundwork for students to know that you're someone that they can trust to come with, especially with something that can be so, so personal.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And so I guess my question is, how is it that you've created that safe space where students feel safe coming and talking to you about things like that?
I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I have no idea what I'm doing as to why they feel safe to come and talk to me. It's not always things that I need to know or ever wanted to know. And at the age that I teach middle school, sometimes they just blurt out things, and I don't think it's that I've made them feel safe. They just blurt it out. But I strive really hard to make sure that my students know that this is a safe space, that I make sure my kids know, I'm like, you're my kids. Like, I'll go to bat for you every day, and don't ever think that I won't ever believe you.
I think that might be it then. That's the sign of a good leader, a good educator, is that sometimes we don't know that we're laying that groundwork just by being who we naturally are. Students just know that if they blurt something out in your class, that you're going to react in a way that makes them feel safe and loved and cared for. It's not saying that, teachers are going around saying they love you all the time, but to know that you're going to act and react in a way that makes them feel like they're valued and that every student matters to you. Just by how you act every day, that you don't naturally have to go around, today we're building community every day. You don't have to do that, because that's just part of who you are as an educator. And they know they can just blurt those things out to you because they know that you're not going to overreact. You're going to react in a way that's going to support them. So that just must be how you carry yourself. I mean, I know you on a personal level, but I can't obviously visit your classroom.
I mean, you can. That's going to be a really long drive for you, man.
Right, without an adventure. But I know you as a person, and if you're anything like that in the classroom, you've created an environment where your students just know they can just say whatever, and you're going to help them however necessary. So, and I think that a lot of teachers just naturally know how to do that. And if you're a new teacher, you just have to kind of feel your way through it. And you do kind of have to say to yourself, today I'm building community, maybe not out loud, but to yourself in your brain, and structure that into your day, and eventually it becomes a habit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think, as I was a technology teacher, so I spent time teaching about cyberbullying and online, how do I want to say this? Like your digital footprint and your online presence. And a lot of kids don't think before posting. They don't realize, whether they're on social media or whatever it is, they just react. And that's not always a good thing. So one of the things we would talk about is, think before you post. And when you're posting this, like if you have a question, should I post this? Then you probably shouldn't. Because I think a lot of people, adults included, skip that step of, should I post this? Is this really a good idea? And with so many, colleges and jobs looking to see, on your social media, what is this person like before they give you a shot? I mean, you really have to think. And posting when you're mad, never a good idea. But, tell a 13-year-old impulsive child, don't do anything when you're mad. That doesn't always go well. So I think part of this is the education part. And the other part is really monitoring from parents. And I think one of the things that I ran into was, if a kid comes to you and they're talking about being cyberbullied, does the parent know? Are they aware of what's going on? You might think they are, but how would you approach that? And, do you bring the parent into this conversation? What do you do?
Well, there's an old saying that goes, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, now it's sticks and stones may break my bones, but screenshots last forever. So anything that you put out there, assume someone's going to screenshot it. And it could be read aloud at your graduation, at your job interview, in front of all of your peers, to your parents. So anything that you're going to put out there, you have to assume, and that goes for new teachers too, not just our students. Anything that you put out there, assume that someone's going to be reading it out loud. And if you would be uncomfortable with anybody reading it, be it your pastor, your priest, your parents, your grandparents, maybe it shouldn't be written out there. There is a reason there's text messaging or private messaging, and not a public forum. Of course, public forums have their place, but you really want to be mindful of what you're sharing and be a model of that. The other problem of technology is that often our children and our students know more about it than we do, because technology moves at the speed of light, it feels like. And before we can keep up and learn the new app, there's already another new app, or an app we were just talking about this yesterday, disguised as a different app. I follow a certain company, Bark, and they post certain things that can keep me up with the lingo and the different apps that are out there, but we're always a step behind. So really, we have to be less spy, I guess, and more open communicator, and a little bit of a mix of both, so that we don't have to always be sneaking, but be that trusted confidant for our students, and for if we have personal children as well. Because we're always going to be a step behind. That's part of the struggle of this.
I absolutely agree. And piggybacking on that, let's be real honest, some of our parents or guardians, they know less about technology than we do. So definitely making sure that they're in the loop, and making sure that if there are screenshots or if there's something that you've seen, you need to let them know that, hey, this is something that your child has shared with me and it's concerning, and I want to let you know what's happening. That way they can ask questions, because sometimes, even as a parent, my kid will say something and I'm like, I'm sorry, can you speak English? Because I don't understand what you just said. And so sometimes it's easier with us as educators to be that barrier or that bridge between the kid lingo and the adult, because frankly, just like with technology, their words change all the time. And sometimes I'm like, I learned a new word and I don't know if I want to know that word.
Or I need
Yeah.
someone to explain it to me and like be real with me about what it is so that I know what you're saying and if I should be saying it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Or
I
if you should be saying it, right?
can't say I never Googled those terms. I'm like, what does this mean? And half the time I was afraid to find out, but
Mm-hmm.
I did find out. And as a parent, if I look at this from the side of the parent, is there a chance that a child's being cyberbullied and they're not telling their parent because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble, or their parent's going to be mad? Sure. But I think that child, if they have access to that phone all day long and they're at home and maybe their parent works at night and they're not there, it's not necessarily safe for that child to be cyberbullied in a place where they're by themselves. So it is kind of scary. I think there's an internal conflict of, do I want to lose the trust of this child by calling their parent? But their parent really does need to know what's happening so we can try and stop this. That is a struggle. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to the safety of the student and what's best for them, because sometimes the parent doesn't know.
Well, and as court mandated reporters, if we see something or we know something, and like you said, that's dangerous, we have to report it. It's not breaking the I have to do it.
Yes.
Sometimes it's illegal as well. Certain types of photos and things like that. I mean, there's very specific language in the law that we have to follow exactly what it said. I mean, certain photos you can't have on your device. You can't take photos of them. I mean, you have to follow very specific protocol for that. And if you are a teacher, you have to, any adult really, make sure that you are aware of what those protocols are. You don't want to get yourself into a sticky situation where you were just trying to protect someone and end up breaking the law yourself, because there's really not a lot of gray area there. You have to understand what your role is in those situations. So
yes, and that's definitely great advice. And I think it's different age groups as to how this plays out, because your older ones have much more access to technology, and it's probably less monitored than it is in the younger groups. But one of the things that I also saw in addition to cyberbullying was like predators. I had a 13-year-old student one year talking to like a 22-year-old man and didn't realize that this was a really big problem. And the parents weren't aware because the child didn't realize that's creepy. That's not okay. Like that's a bad situation. And it took a decently long classroom long conversation to realize this is a problem and this is why. Because some of these kids don't realize, there are bad people in the world. There are. And, not everybody that you talk to is who you think they are, especially when you meet them online. So there's a lot of things that they're not learning before they get those devices in their hand.
Sometimes you get lucky and you have intervention from someone like you, Stacey, that can have that class-long conversation and you can avoid a problem, and sometimes you don't get lucky. So we kind of as a society need to look at how to better protect our children, because you never know who's on the other side of that screen. And right, everybody's not a nice person. They're just not.
Yes.
And not just even that, the kids nowadays, it's the generational difference. And I use that term kind of really strictly. It really is different between when I was a child. And of course, my cell phone was like that thick and that sucker wouldn't break. But these kids don't see it as cyberbullying or predators. They see it as a new friend. If it's cyberbullying, last year we found a ton of things on like Instagram and Facebook that kids were making groups just so they could make fun of other people. They would take pictures and they would post it and make fun of people. And these huge groups of kids just thought it was hysterical. I don't think they were trying to do it to be hurtful. They just thought it was funny. And it's the same thing with a predator. They could easily hide as a child and say, hey, that's really funny. And they talk or whatever. And they don't see a problem with it. They don't see why that's wrong. But us as educators, we'll sit there and be like, that's just, I don't know why I have to explain to you why that's wrong, but we do, because they don't get it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, honestly, COVID and everyone being stuck at home probably made this worse by the fact that the only interaction you had with people for a while was online. I mean, you didn't have the option to go in and seeing someone face to face. So they've kind of gotten used to this, and they are really desensitized to, the damage that can come from these things because it's just like normal to them, and then you mentioned earlier these apps that hide as other things. Like there's an app that looks like a calculator, but it's actually a messaging app. And these apps are designed for kids to be able to hide them from their parents, which to me is a whole problem. Why are you designing an app?
Right.
Yeah, there's probably one of those people that shouldn't be talking to children.
Yeah, exactly. And so those apps are a problem. And for every one that comes out, there's another one and another one and another one. And how do you constantly stay updated on all of that? There really is no way.
Apple can't. How are the rest of us supposed to keep up?
Exactly. And that's the problem. And I think, one of the things is, as parents, having an open relationship with your children where they feel like they can come to you about anything. I try to listen to every little thing that my kids want to tell me, even though sometimes those little things take like 25 minutes, because I don't want to get to a point where they don't tell me the big things because I didn't listen to the little things. I want my kids to feel like they can always come and talk to me about whatever it is, whether it's, today it was like a dragon or whatever it is. They're little still. But, some days that's hard when you have so many things going on, and it's easy to just be like, okay, well, let me come back to you. And then you don't. So that's not always easy to do, I don't think.
It's not. It's a hard balance. Because we, as adults, and especially in the education world, we are juggling so many different things that our brains are like a child who has severe ADHD. Like we're everywhere. I think it's important to have that open line of communication. Yes, I ask my kids every single day, tell me about what happened, and my kids will tell me stuff that I'm like, why did I need to know that? But I still listen to it. But on the flip side, because I'm a mom and because I've seen some of the horrifying things being a teacher and everything, I'm what is called a helicopter mom. My kids, they can't download apps on their phone without it sending me a message and me approving it. They have time limits on their phone. They can't access certain things if it has adult content. They can't even access YouTube. And I took away kid YouTube because it has some adult content on there. Like, you have to have a balance between them feeling safe and them knowing that I'm your parent and these are your boundaries. And I don't care if you want to cross them because you're not going to.
And I think, for that, it's also, I don't care if you're mad at me because my job is to protect you. And if you want to be mad at me, that's okay. Like, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to be your parent. And, you may not like me, but you're stuck with me. So here's how it is. And for some parents, that's really hard. Like, you want your kid to always, like you, but sometimes they're not going to. You just got to draw that
thing
line.
Of what we're doing at work now is going over all the routines and rules. And it's like, we don't love making rules. We don't like watching you follow all the rules. I mean, it's nice when you do, but it's not just because it's entertaining to make rules and make people follow them. And you have to go over with them, adults. You might think adults don't have to follow rules, but like I can't drive through all the stop signs. I can't make my own speed limits. I can try, but it's not recommended.
There'll be a consequence.
Right. There's always a consequence. I can't leave the store without paying. There's a consequence for that. And you might think that grown-ups can do whatever they want. I mean, you can try to stay up all night, but there's a consequence for that too. You'll be really tired and not friendly the next day. But we've been trying to explain that to the kids. Like, most of the rules that we have are for safety reasons. and they're almost all the same everywhere you go. Walking, listening quietly, those kinds of things. You don't have to be quiet all the time, but in the hallway we're quiet because it's respectful to other people learning, that kind of thing. But on the internet, especially at the school, I mean, we have an extremely powerful filter at the school. And when we went to virtual, it's hard to remember, like, it's a school device, but you're on your own Wi-Fi, and things can get through when you're on your own Wi-Fi. And that was quite the learning curve for a lot of us, because you can't just take your school device and just do whatever, because it's not on school Wi-Fi. So we're fortunate to have a very adequate tech department that manages and troubleshoots everything 2 steps ahead of and anything that the kids could think of. And we really do spend a lot of time going over, this is what we're using, this is what we're not using, this is who the tablet belongs to. The tech department can see everything that you do on your school-owned device. They can see everything I do on my school-owned device. That is what their job is. It is for safety reasons. It's not because they enjoy, dropping in on everyone's tablet. That's not it. And it's just to make sure that we're safe. And honestly, that's at the end of the day, that's it. It's not like enjoyable to like check out what, the 5-year-olds are doing on their tablets. And I mean, we're all just trying to keep everybody safe at school. And out in the real world, not everybody's trying to do that. And it's such a challenge for us. Like we said, there's always someone trying to think of the next. Right now, someone's thinking of a way to get around something that we've set up to protect kids. And it's sad. It really is. It would be nice if they could spend their time solving world hunger or, something like that. Global warming. Hey, if anybody needs suggestions, I have a few. But they're not. They're spending time trying to find ways for kids to access things they shouldn't. And so we always have to be taking extra steps to protect our kids.
And I think the unfortunate thing is that sometimes, and I taught technology, so I saw this a lot, the kids are the ones trying to find a way around those things that we put in place to protect them. And inevitably, they will find a way.
Yes.
I wish they would put that energy into their schoolwork instead of into a way to find a way around the content filter. But, they were at least using their ingenuity somewhere. And that makes it difficult because for every, way around they find, and you block it, and then they find another one, and they're never going to stop.
No.
And it's like this never ending cycle that you can throw all of your energy into, where you can try to educate them on, why you shouldn't. Are you ever truly going to win that battle? Probably not. But there's got to be a balance somewhere. And I think one of the things that, as educators and as parents too, we need to do is, teaching our children to advocate for themselves. So if you're being cyberbullied, speak up. This is what you need to do. And make it, I think a lot of kids don't say anything because they feel ashamed or they feel like they did something wrong. And in a lot of cases, they didn't start this. They didn't ask for this. So how do we make kids feel like safe in advocating for themselves and knowing where to go to get help when they need it?
I don't know. I think for me at the level that I teach, like I said before, there's a difference in the way these kids think. It's not essentially always that they won't advocate for themselves. It's that the way that they do advocate for themselves is actually not going to help the problem. That's how a lot of fights start that I've seen is kids will post something online about another kid, and that kid, their response is, I'm going to beat you. And it gets really hard that I think for me anyways, and teaching middle school, that I need to teach them how to advocate properly. It's not that they can't advocate for themselves. They need to do it in a healthy manner that's not going to get them in trouble too.
We have a program, and we've had it for a long time, the Alveus anti-bullying program, and it's very structured and it has lessons, and they have like a sample video that goes with some of the weeks and stories and different like role playing and things like that. So role playing is a little harder for me because it's hard to have the kids pretend to bully each other. I have a struggle with that sometimes. But I don't mind the little shorts and videos and things because it does give the kids a chance to see it happening, and then they can kind of identify and talk through it. And we do a lot of read alouds and things like that where it can show growing through things and different ways to attack different sorts of problems. But I really think the cyberbullying could be an extension of any sort of formalized bullying program that's out there. And just to make sure that we're really tackling this, but it's definitely a community effort. Like, the teachers can't be the only ones, the parents can't be the only ones. I mean, there is only so much the school can do. Some of the bullying does escalate to charges, like actual charges. Like, kids have to understand that too. You can't just go around posting things and saying things, because at a certain age, at a certain level, you do become legally responsible, and that stays on your record. You can't outrun that, and that could ruin your job chances, ruin your future. And those are things that kids have to know about. You can have community town hall meetings. I know we've done some of that in our district with, like, the district attorney can come and your county can present things. I think the more we try to bring all the stakeholders together and talk about, like, this is what's happening. We have students coming to us with that, kind of read the vibe of your community and go from there. The more information we put out there for what we see we need in the community, the better. The people that want it are going to come forward and try to get what they need. But I always think it's the worst when people say, well, you never told me, you didn't have that for me. I'd much rather have too much than not enough.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, I want to shift focus for just a minute to the parent side. If you're a parent and your child's being cyberbullied, should you contact the school and let them know what's happening? Because in a lot of cases, this child might be going to school with your child. What do you think about that as parents?
I have that. I'm going to be honest. With that, I have the natural mama bear instinct, and I immediately go to the school. And I'm like, listen, this is going on. I want you to be aware. If you could help me take care of it before I have to take care of it, that would be fabulous. And of course, you can't always guarantee that the kid goes to the same school, but that is my immediate response, is because those are my babies, that I'm like, okay, we're going to nip this in the bud right now. And then, of course, whatever they're being bullied on, I actually take that app or that site away from them, just because I'm like, listen, we're just not going to look at it. We're going to make sure that you don't have access to it and that the school is aware of it. And then I track it on my own. And I'm like, okay, it's still happening. But as a parent, that I immediately bring it to the school's attention, because Lord knows it can jump real fast from cyberbullying to straight in the halls.
I think as a parent and a teacher, I always tell my parents, if you don't tell me, I don't know. If you're in the same class, if you ride the same bus, I need to know these things. If you have a bad day, a bad morning, like, I need to know this stuff. And you don't have to, if you don't want to tell me all of it, that's fine. But if you're having a problem in the neighborhood with a friend and it's really impacting your child, if it's a bullying incident, like, we're in the same class, I need to make sure that those two are not sitting near each other. They're not playing together at recess, or if they are, that I'm keeping an eye on it to make sure it doesn't escalate. I can't help you if you don't give me some of that information. And I don't need to know your whole life story. I just need to know the important facts. I don't want to know all the extra, just the facts. Like I tell you, as the teacher to the parent, I'm not going to give you all the extra. I'm going to tell you the facts. This is what happened. You need to, if the school's not receptive to it, then maybe you have some other questions to ask as well. But if your administrator, your guidance counselor, those kinds of people, they should be supportive that something's going on with your child, because if they're getting bullied, it's probably going to impact their mental health or their attendance, and the school should be concerned about these things for your child. So I would definitely contact the school, because they're a big part of your child's life every day.
Yeah, definitely. And the school is, your partner in in, educating and in a lot of ways raising your child, because they're there, just as much as they're at home during the school year. And, if they're there and they have a phone, and if this is happening at school, the school can actually do something about that. They may not be able to punish them if it's happening outside of school hours, but a lot of these happen during the school day. And in that situation, there are things that the school can do, and they will want to know, because again, that can jump from cyberbullying to a fight in the hallway real fast, especially at, middle school age. It can happen real fast. So, bringing the school in and letting them help you, or at least making them aware, is always a good idea, in my opinion, as a parent and as a teacher. So if you have any questions that we didn't answer, feel free to put those in the chat, and we'll monitor and get some more info. We'll get some resources posted too. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.